The 1990s gave us harmonies that melted hearts, slow jams that defined late-night radio, and R&B groups that still live in our memories. But not every group was loved. Some were mocked, overplayed, misunderstood, or caught in storms they couldn't outrun. Today, we're counting down 15 of the most hated R&B bands of the 1990s. Stories, scandals, and all. Number 15, Immature, later IMX.
We warn you, though, their music is as loud as their wardrobe. Let's welcome Immature.
Immature came onto the scene in the early 90s under the guidance of Chris Stokes, and from the start, they had a unique challenge. They were marketed as teen heartthrobs before they were old enough to actually experience the kind of love they were singing about. With hits like Never Lie and Constantly, they definitely had fans, especially younger audiences. But older R&B listeners often brushed them aside, calling them kiddie R&B. Behind the scenes, the group worked incredibly hard, touring constantly, acting in films like House Party 3, and living in rehearsal studios. But fame came with growing pains. Their youthful image made critics dismiss them as manufactured, while rumors about mismanagement and industry control followed them for years. And yet, when you listen back now, there's a sweetness there, a snapshot of what young black teen stardom looked like in the era of cross colors, VHS after-school movies, and posters taped to bedroom walls. Their harmonies weren't always perfect, but they were earnest, and sometimes that's the real charm. If Immature was the group we grew out of, this next one was the group many people insisted they never liked, even while they secretly knew every lyric. Number 14, Color Me Badd. Color Me Badd exploded onto the scene in 1991 with I Wanna Sex You Up, and instantly became one of the most recognizable groups in R&B and pop. But for as much love as they received on the charts, they were equally clowned by R&B purists and urban radio listeners who felt the group leaned too heavily into pop crossover territory. Their style, bright suits, silky falsettos, and sometimes awkward choreography made them a prime target for jokes on sketch shows and school hallways alike. But peel back the surface, and there's a deeper story. These guys came from Oklahoma, nowhere near the established R&B hubs of Detroit, Philly, or Atlanta. They carved out a lane for themselves without industry pipelines, relying on raw hustle, harmonies, and ambition. And they did break barriers. Multi-ethnic representation in R&B before it was widely embraced, crossover success, and platinum hits that still get quoted today. Yet the backlash came with the fame. Their look was seen as too polished, their sound too bubblegum, their image too carefully packaged. They weren't street enough for some, not soul enough for others. But whether fans admitted it or not, the hooks were unforgettable. The kind you sang quietly when your friends weren't listening. If Color Me Badd was the group people pretended they didn't love, this next group was the one critics insisted was trying way too hard to be edgy. Number 13, Jodeci.
Out of my mind. Sex to you be all I...
Now, let's be clear. Jodeci has fans, loyal ones, ride or die ones. But in the 90s, they were also one of the most hated groups in R&B. Why? Because Jodeci shattered what R&B groups were supposed to look and sound like. Instead of clean-cut Motown polish or Boyz II Men sweetness, they came in with combat boots, leather, Timberlands, tattoos, and raw church-trained vocals that sounded like Heartbreak on Fire. Signed to Uptown Records and championed by Sean Puffy Combs early on, they brought a darker, more emotional, more real kind of R&B. But that shift turned some listeners off, especially older audiences who felt they were thugging up soul music.
But I couldn't go for it.
Critics called them too sexual, too aggressive, too unrefined. Meanwhile, industry insiders whispered about substance struggles, shattered hotel rooms, and unpredictable performances. Their name carried reputation and rumor in equal measure. Yet, step back, and their impact is undeniable.
Whatever you want, baby, it will be fine, so fine.
They redefined male R&B. Their style birthed entire generations. Dru Hill, Jagged Edge, Pretty Ricky, Chris Brown, The Weeknd, Tory Lanez. All owe something to Jodeci's blueprint. Songs like Forever My Lady, Come and Talk to Me, and Fiendin' didn't just play on the radio. They lived in bedrooms, slow dance basements, and late-night mixtape dedications. Loved, hated, imitated, never forgotten. And if Jodeci brought edge, this next group brought attitude, and the backlash that came with breaking out of a manufactured image. Number 12, Block Black.
I heard she's got a 9 to 5. But coming in.
Came storming into the late 90s with a futuristic aesthetic, bold confidence, and a cosign from Lisa Left Eye Lopes of TLC. Their breakout hit 808, and their presence in the cult classic film Bring It On gave them immediate visibility. But it also came with heavy criticism.
Now take me for instance, babe.
Many listeners and critics accused them of being a TLC clone, from the styling to the vocal arrangements to the mix of hip-hop attitude and R&B melodies. The truth is more layered. Black was inspired by TLC, but they were also carving out their own lane in an era where girl groups were expected to fit neatly into predefined boxes. Shamari's lead vocals brought emotional warmth. Brandy added that essential harmony blend. And Natina, well, Natina was the spark. Her raw, raspy rap delivery gave Black a personality that didn't sound like anybody else.
You'll be going boom, baby, boom, and I'll be going ooh.
But internal struggles and label politics hit hard. Their second album was delayed for years, momentum stalled, and the media turned on them fast. And tragically, Natina Reed's passing in 2012 cast a shadow over the group's legacy, reminding fans that behind the industry machine were real lives, dreams, and heartbreaks. Listening now, you hear their talent clearly. Bright harmonies, youthful energy, and songs that fit right into the soundtrack of late-night BET and summer cookouts. If Blake felt like a group fighting to be taken seriously, this next band was constantly battling accusations of being nothing more than a marketing product. Number 11, All For One.
The motion to cure my ill, she's got. Yo, Jamie, man.
All For One hit the world like a greeting card wrapped in harmony. With their massive 1994 ballad, I Swear, they crossed over so hard into pop radio that many R&B fans stopped claiming them entirely. The group signed to Blitz/Atlantic.
And work it to the left, work it to the right.
Came up during the era of Boyz II Men dominance and found themselves labeled as the Walmart version by critics who didn't see their emotional style as real R&B. But behind that reputation were serious vocalists. Their harmonies were tight, their arrangements precise, and their work ethic relentless.
Get me right up to me and she'll do me all night long. She's got skill.
The issue? Their label marketed them so heavily toward weddings, school dances, and adult contemporary playlists that they became synonymous with safe music. No edge, no danger, just sweet ballads forever. And that's where the backlash settled in. They weren't cool to like. Even people who cried to their songs would deny it the next day at lunch.
Shine in the motion to cure my ill. She's got.
But listen again now, late at night, eyes closed, and you'll remember why people played these songs when they needed to say something their own voices couldn't. If All For One was seen as too soft, this next group was criticized for being too glossy, too choreographed, too industry perfect. Number 10, 98 Degrees.
Sunshine after the rain. You're the cure.
98 Degrees slid into the mid to late 90s R&B and pop scene during the height of the boy band explosion. But unlike NSYNC or Backstreet Boys, they wanted to be seen as R&B. Deep harmonies, emotional slow jams, smooth vocal blending.
Baby, I really know by now, since we met that.
They even worked with legends like Stevie Wonder and Joe. But the industry and the public didn't always let them hold that lane. Critics and fans often accused them of being R&B imposters, saying they were marketed to look soulful without being rooted in the culture. Their clean-cut image, matching suits, glossy music videos, and Nick Lachey's heartthrob spotlight
You're the cure against my fear and my pain.
made them feel too polished to some listeners. They weren't gritty, they weren't edgy, and they didn't have the church-grown vocal fire that defined so many 90s R&B acts. But here's the real catch. The harmonies were there. And the slow jams? I Do Cherish You, The Hardest Thing, Because of You. These songs lived in school gym slow dances, prom night tears, late-night radio dedications, and diary pages full of teenage longing. Date. Degrees may have been side-eyed for trying to sit at the R&B table,
You're my sunshine after the rain.
but they carved a legitimate place for themselves, especially among listeners who didn't say it out loud but felt those lyrics deep. If the criticism here was about authenticity, the next group faced backlash for something much harsher: industry burnout and being blamed for ruining R&B's romantic era. Number 9. Next came in with a wave. Smooth, sensual vocals layered over production that blended R&B with quiet storm intimacy and radio-ready hooks. Their breakout hit Too Close became one of the biggest R&B songs of the 1990s, dominating radio, clubs, school dances, roller rinks, everywhere.
You got that sex appeal on the real, so sure, soft hands.
But success often brings backlash, and for Next, that backlash hit hard. Some listeners and critics claimed they were too explicit, arguing that their music marked the shift from R&B romance to something more direct, more physical. Older fans who grew up with Luther and Teddy Pendergrass felt like R&B was losing subtlety. Meanwhile, others accused the group of leaning too heavily on one signature sound, especially after the tidal wave success of Too Close overshadowed their truly emotional tracks like Wifey and Butter Love. Behind the music, though, these were real voices, trained, blended, and soulful. Ariel's tone carried vulnerability that cut through the noise, while T-Lo and Tweet added warmth and fullness. They came from Minneapolis, not traditionally known as an R&B hub, and fought their way into the conversation during a highly competitive era dominated by giants. What made people clown them back then is exactly what makes folks nostalgic now. Songs that felt like young love, like the basement slow dance, like the nervous but excited heartbeat moment right before a kiss. And just like love stories, not everyone understood them at the time. If Next was criticized for being too bold, the next group caught heat for something even trickier: being everywhere, all at once, to the point where people claimed they couldn't escape them. Number 8, En Vogue Now.
Because I can't pretend
En Vogue being on a most hated list doesn't mean people didn't admire or respect them. In fact, they were often seen as too good, too polished, too vocally perfect, too glamorous. And that's exactly where some of the backlash came from. When En Vogue debuted at the start of the 90s under the production genius of Foster and McElroy, they set a standard for what a modern R&B girl group could look and sound like. The harmonies, precise. The visuals, cinematic. The vocals, untouchable. But with that elevation came the pressure of perfection, and some fans and critics pushed back. They were called manufactured, industry-made, fashion over feeling. People compared them to earlier powerhouse girl groups like the Supremes, saying they were trying too hard to resurrect elegance in an era moving toward hip-hop swagger. And when lineup changes hit, most famously the tension surrounding Dawn Robinson, fans divided fast. Arguments over who was the real voice, who should have led, who was underappreciated followed them for years. Yet, when you revisit their catalog, hold on, don't let go, free your mind, giving him something he can feel. The artistry is undeniable. They blended church-rooted vocals with high-gloss performance energy in a way that absolutely shaped the landscape for Destiny's Child, Danity Kane, and every harmony-driven girl group after them. En Vogue wasn't hated because they lacked talent. They were hated because they were too good, too visible, too dominant. Sometimes brilliance attracts envy as much as love. And while En Vogue faced pressure for being too polished, this next group was judged for the complete opposite, being too flashy, too loud, and too dramatic for some listeners' tastes. Number 7, Dru Hill.
Got this feeling, and I just can't turn it loose.
Dru Hill came out of Baltimore, not New York, not LA, not Atlanta. And they carried that grit, that church-sung pain, and that raw sidewalk energy right into the R&B landscape. When In My Bed, Never Make a Promise, and How Deep Is Your Love hit, they weren't just songs. They were emotions you could feel in your chest. Sisqó's soaring, fire-filled vocals became the centerpiece, while Jazz, Nokio, and Woody built those harmonies that sounded like midnight heartbreak layered with gospel fire. But with intensity comes backlash. Some critics said Sisqó's theatrics overshadowed the group.
Cause it's written all over your face.
Others claimed they were too dramatic, too willing to let emotion explode instead of smoothing it out. And when Sisqó went solo with Thong Song, fans and industry watchers accused him of abandoning the group, sparking years of tension, shade interviews, and reunion attempts that sometimes fell apart right as hope was building again. Yet, listen to them now. Really listen.
Oh my God, but you still ran out on me.
And you'll hear men who sang from the gut. No holding back, no pretending. Pain, love, confusion, and desire. All of it right there in the voice. Dru Hill wasn't just a group, they were a feeling. And that feeling still hits. If these memories are hitting home, go ahead and like this video. It helps keep the soul, the nostalgia, and the stories alive. And stay tuned. We've still got 6 more groups whose reputations spark debates you can still hear today. Number 6, H-Town, H-Town. Burst onto the scene in 1993 with Knockin' Da Boots, a slow jam that became so big, so instantly recognizable, that it defined them before they even had the chance to define themselves. The group, founded by twin brothers Kevin Dean O'Connor and Solomon Shazam Connor, along with longtime friend G.I., came up under Luke Records, which already brought expectations of boldness and controversy. The backlash happened fast. Some listeners felt they leaned too heavily into sensuality. Critics accused them of being part of a wave that pushed R&B from emotional romance into pure physical desire. And when a song becomes that culturally massive, the response is almost predictable. People start calling you a one-hit wonder, even while you're actively charting other hits. But H-Town was so much more than one hit. Songs like Lick You Up, Emotions, and especially Knockin' the Boots Part 2 showed growth, deeper vocal layering, and a maturity only real-life pain can bring. Dino's voice was something different. A raspy, emotional cry that sounded like love, regret, and want, all in one note. Then, tragedy struck. In 2003, Dino's life was cut short in a car accident, and with him, the core identity of the group. It was heartbreak, not just for fans, but for a community that understood how rare a voice like his really was. Today, when that opening beat hits, people remember. Late night radio requests, candles burning, love letters, warm summer air through bedroom windows. H-Town wasn't hated because they lacked talent. They were hated because their success was too obvious, too raw, too unforgettable to ignore. If H-Town faced criticism for being too sensual, our next group was criticized for the opposite. Being emotional in a way some listeners weren't ready to take seriously in the 90s. Number 5 is Shy Shy came in with Vulnerability. This is the place where you belong. And in the early 90s, that wasn't always embraced. Their breakout single, If I Ever Fall in Love, was a bare bones, a cappella confession released in 1992 while they were still students at Howard University. It didn't sound like anything on the radio. No big drums, no glossy production, just voices, harmony, and emotion laid completely bare.
Everybody hear me sing, this is the place.
And that's exactly why the backlash came. Some listeners felt the group was too soft, too sentimental, too earnest in a decade where masculinity in R&B was becoming more rugged and urban flavored. They weren't street. They weren't flashy. They didn't dance in matching leather. They just sang, straight from the heart. For some, that sincerity felt uncool. But look deeper, and you see the courage it took.
I'm on my knees, begging for forgiveness in your
Shay doubled down on harmonies, painful, breathtaking, church-rooted harmonies. Songs like Comforter and Baby I'm Yours sound like quiet conversations in the dark. Late-night phone calls back when you stretch the phone cord into the hallway. Their downfall, timing, and pressure. The industry wanted more hits like their first, and lightning like that rarely strikes twice. And yet, when that a cappella intro plays today, people stop. People remember. If Shay gave us the quiet storm of love, the next group gave us the storm after the breakup. Raw, emotional, and dramatic in the best way. Number 4, X-Escape. X-Escape came into the 90s with no interest in being pretty on purpose. While the industry was flooded with girl groups styled to be glamorous, polished, and camera-ready, X-Escape stepped in looking real. Jeans, boots, baggy fits, and voices that sounded like the church choir on its most emotional Sunday.
Why don't you stay a while? I can't help it if you.
Signed to Jermaine Dupri's So So Def, they delivered raw honesty through songs like Understanding, Just Kicking It, and Who Can I Run To? But that same authenticity is what fueled the hate. They weren't soft enough. They weren't fashion enough. They didn't perform femininity in the way the music industry liked women to. Critics nitpicked everything, from their styling to their weight to who deserved lead vocals.
Hold me, baby, and love me, baby.
And when personal tension spilled into public interviews and uneven reunions, fans took sides. Hard. Yet, today, X-Escape stands as one of the most authentically soulful girl groups of the decade. They didn't chase likability. They chased emotion. And you heard it. In every run, every belt, every crack of the voice that sounded too real to hide. They may not have been polished like En Vogue or flashy like TLC, but they were true. And that truth aged like gospel vinyl. If X-Escape gave us emotional honesty, the next group gave us something even more polarizing. A blend of hot vocals, flashy showmanship, and R&B turned into a full stage spectacle. Number 3, Mint Condition.
On to your thoughts of rejection.
Here's the thing about Mint Condition. They were musicians, real ones. A full band in an era when R&B was shifting toward programmed drums, keyboard loops, and slick studio formulas. Their breakout single, Breaking My Heart, Pretty Brown Eyes,
Waiting to be unleashed.
became a defining slow jam of 1991. Smooth, emotional, and built around live instrumentation that felt like honey poured over late-night city lights. But that's exactly why they were hated by some listeners. People said they were too grown, too mature, too smooth, too much like jazz musicians pretending to be R&B stars.
Tell your friends that I don't mean nothing to you.
And as R&B became more hip-hop infused through the mid to late 90s, Mint Condition's commitment to live band sound made them feel old school to listeners craving beats and swagger. They got labeled as adult music while still being young themselves. And yet, Stockley's voice, that voice could tear open a heart and stitch it back in the same breath. Their concerts were events, sweaty, soulful, emotional, musicianship at its finest. And while the trend-chasing world shifted around them, they stayed who they were. And today, their sound has aged gracefully, warm, rich, alive, like vinyl in a sunlit living room. If Mint Condition was brushed aside for being too musical, the next group was slammed for being too popular. So omnipresent that listeners turned on them simply from hearing them everywhere. Number 2, Boyz II.
Yo, fellas, y'all ready to do this? Yeah, yo, what's up, y'all? What's up, Boyz II Men in effect.
Men, listen. Boyz II Men are one of the most successful R&B groups of all time. Their harmonies were silk. Their arrangements were immaculate. Their ballads defined weddings, graduations, slow dances, quiet car rides, heartbreak confessions. Their music lived in real life.
But now I'm feeling me slamming. Boyz II Men, ABC.
But with that level of success came a wave of backlash unlike almost any other group of the decade. Signed to Motown under Michael Bivins' guidance, they rose fast. Too fast, some critics said. And when songs like End of the Road, I'll Make Love to You, and One Sweet Day dominated radio for weeks, then months, then record-breaking stretches, people didn't just love them. They got tired of hearing them everywhere. They became the default love song group, and anything that becomes the default becomes easy to mock.
Know that we love. Back in school, we used to dream about this every day.
The hate wasn't about talent. It was about perception. They were too perfect, too emotional, too commercial, too everywhere all the time. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, they were facing heavy personal strain, vocal injuries, internal disagreements, label tension. and the pressure of holding up an entire era of romantic R&B on their shoulders. But today, their songs are revered. They're the blueprint for harmony-based R&B fushbin. R&B male groups. Their influence stretches from Jagged Edge to Neo to Pentatonix, and their music hits harder the older you get. And if Boyz II Men were criticized simply for being too successful, our #1 group was hated for something far messier: public drama, internal fallout, media chaos, and the raw tension that never stopped being part of their story. Number 1. TLC was everywhere in the 90s.
Scrub is a guy that thinks he's flying, is also known as a buster.
They were bold, loud, playful, emotional, political, sexual, silly, serious, human. And that humanity is exactly what made them one of the most loved and yet also most hated R&B groups of the decade. Signed to LaFace Records, guided by L.A. Reid and Babyface, and creatively sparked by Lisa Left Eye Lopes,
I don't want your number, no. I don't wanna give you mine, and no.
they pushed boundaries with Ain't Too Proud, Too Big, Creep, and the cultural earthquake that was Waterfalls. But behind the hits came public chaos, the arson headlines, the bankruptcy scandal while selling millions of records, the internal romantic triangle drama, the media pitting members against each other, and the pressure of being women in an industry that wanted to control everything about them.
Trying to holler at me. I don't want no scrub. Scrub is a guy.
From their clothes, to their voices, to their message. People called them troublemakers. People called them messy. People called them difficult. But what they really were was honest. They talked about real life, safe sex, insecurity, self-worth, poverty, love, identity. They showed the world that girl groups didn't need to smile to be palatable.
If you really wanna know, ask Chili. Could I be a silly?
They could be bold, they could be complicated, they could be themselves. And that's why TLC remains legend. From glossy radio favorites to raw, emotional powerhouses, these were the R&B groups who sparked debates, devotion, and full-on arguments from the barbershop to the lunch table. Love them or hate them, they shaped the soundtrack of the 90s and the culture that came with it. Thanks for taking this soulful stroll with us. If you felt the nostalgia, if it brought back even one memory, go ahead and subscribe to keep the groove alive. And don't stop now. The next video is waiting. 15 controversial R&B songs that defined the 1990s. Click the end screen and let's keep the rhythm rolling.